Hello, I'm Dynast Amir.
So I reached out to another friend of mine. I said, look, I need to go on vacation somewhere. Where should I go? He said, go to Africa. And not only am I going to go, I'm going to explore a new country. So I went to Tanzania, South Africa, Namibia, Mali, Senegal, Morocco, Liberia, Namibia, Kenya, the Voodoo Festival in Ouida, Gambia, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire. Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria. It's been a beautiful experience, just learning more about our culture, our indigenous culture. So Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. I'm in search of my roots. In finding that, I would experience my Uhuru, which is freedom.
I'm out.
Peace, family. I hope all is well. I hope your Monday is going well. Hope you're off to a great start. We're going to go ahead and jump into today's topic. Me and brother Ebube, we're going to be discussing the recent happenings in Osun State. The Osun State governors, I guess it won't be considered a race because Adeleke was won, in quotation marks, the election, but there was a tribunal review, which now Oyetola is now the governor. So Ebube knows more than me. He specializes in this, but it was an interesting happening that just went down last week. So I'm going to bring Ebube on. But first off, guys, please hit the like button. Again, please hit the like button as you come to the chat room. Again, please hit the like button and also share. Again, please share. So we're going to bring on brother Ebube Okoli, our in-house attorney of law here in Atlanta by way of Nigeria. Ebube, go ahead and introduce yourself.
How you doing? It's good to be here. And Don, it's the day I wear trad. You don't wear traditional? Come on. It's you always
I know, right? Yeah. I'm in my free UEP news shirt.
UE, same thing. So it's all the same. Yeah, I spent most of the time I spent in Nigeria growing up, and as a young adult, we're spent in Abuja, which is northern Nigeria. So I have an affinity for the northern culture. But for those who don't know me, my name is Ebube Okoli. I'm a Nigerian-born, American-trained attorney and geopolitical analyst. I'm also the creative director of Up Close and Center, which is a channel here on YouTube. The logo is like this. So if you haven't already liked this stream, please go ahead and like this stream. Also, if you haven't purchased Dynast Amir's documentary, make sure you go ahead and take a gander at that. And if you have purchased it, buy it for somebody else. Spread the love, spread the knowledge. Let's keep this thing going. All right. So in regards to today's topic, it's very interesting and it has wide implications for the greater election. For those who don't know, the most important election in Africa is coming up in less than 30 days. By this time next month, we will know one of the most important questions is who is going to essentially guide Nigeria and whose vision for the future is going to be the vision that essentially wins out, right? And so what we have now is a harbinger of what could potentially come when we take a look at the election results and what may have happened and what may not have happened. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that. So, Dynast, here's the thing. Can you go ahead and do a screen share?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me go ahead and pull some things up.
Guys, please hit the like button. So I'm sure you're going to get into that. So what actually happened last week? But I'm sure you're going to get into, I know you're going to break that down and get on.
Definitely.
Probably get ahead of us.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely, that's going to be the first thing that I get into. And then I'm going to lead into the larger picture of what this may entail. Got to adjust my kufi there.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for it to
take your time. Take your time.
I'm still waiting for you to share it. Or did you email me something or?
Oh no, I haven't. I was going to share my screen.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, I get it. It's
hit present, then click on the document or whatever you want to share, or not, just email it to me and I'll pull it up.
So give me the instructions again. Click on present, click on share.
So click on present, share screen, and then you'll see the document you want to share. If you have it pulled up, you should see the option for it to share. If not, just email it to me and I'll share it.
Okay, I got it right here.
Oh, I see it right here. All right, bad. All right, there we go.
All right. So let's go ahead.
Make this large so everybody can see it.
All right, so you can see me moving up and down, correct?
Yeah. In fact, let's just go ahead and do it like this. Oh, my bad. Hold on 1 second. Oh, don't want that. There we go. All right, go ahead. Should be fine like that.
Perfect. So now what we have here is an analysis, and this is an analysis of the 2023 presidential election. However, we're taking it in light of the recent events that happened in Osun State. There was a tribunal in Osogbo, and I'm sure you're pretty familiar with that town, as you're one of the people that lead people to that city. So it's very important in regards to what's going on right now. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. All right. So previously in the Osun election, you had Adeleke and you had Oyetola. Oyetola was from the APC. The APC is the ruling party, the dominant party. It's the party of Muhammadu Buhari. And this particular subset is the subset that was previously ACM that merged into the APC. The APC is a conglomerate of several parties that came together in order to take power from the dominant PDP almost 8 years ago. And now we're coming up to the point where these little elections really matter. And this isn't just a little election, because this is a potential harbinger of what we may actually see come election day. So here we see the electoral map. Green is PDP, the People's Democratic Party, and APC, the All Progressives Congress. And so initially, during the Osun election, APC lost. And Oyetola was a very close ally of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who's a very powerful figure within the APC, and he's currently the APC's flag bearer for president. And so when people saw that the ruling party in Tinubu's backyard within his sphere of influence, when they saw that his man lost an election, people generally said that this was free and fair. Because if the ruling party loses and they had the potential power to maybe influence INEC, which is the independent Nigerian national electoral body, if you will, they're the referee for the elections, people said, okay, this must be free and fair. It gave a lot of hope to the people who are using the PVCs, which is the permanent voter card. So what happened in Nigeria is that you have a group of people who truly believe that these elections are going to be free and fair. And they would point to this election and say, take a look. If these elections weren't free and fair, how did we come to the result where someone like a candidate backed by Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the Southwest, which is a stronghold and sphere of influence of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he wouldn't have lost if rigging occurred. So now we fast forward a bit into the future, and we see that the election result was actually overturned, which is very odd, considering the fact that INEC stated that the system was very powerful. Recently, what happened is Mr. Oyetola, the man in the striped hat, challenged the victory of Governor Adeleke in the white hat, that he didn't actually win. Moreover, he said that his certificate was forged, therefore he couldn't possibly be elected as president. As governor. And so he challenged it on those two grounds. And so what the court found is that the court found that there was overvoting. And so the original results where current governor Adeleke had 371,000 votes, was declared the winner, as opposed to Oyetola, who was adjudged to have 375,000 votes, basically coming up about 28,000 votes short.
Go ahead, Ebube. But I got a question. Sorry for interrupting.
Basically, so these were the original results that came out. However, the court ruled that there was overvoting. They didn't really look at the forgery issue. They stated that forgery is a crime, and if after currently, what happens is governors in Nigeria have immunity from certain types of prosecution. So a governor basically can't be brought to court during their time as governor. So what the court ruled is that he couldn't be brought to, this isn't the forum to bring that type of charge. So they just focused on the overvoting. Go ahead, Dennis.
If you could go into detail, what exactly is overvoting?
All right, overvoting. Now with the BVAS system, BVAS is what all the cool kids are calling it. But with the BVAS system, essentially what happens is that there's a certain number of, now there's voter accreditation, and then there's the instant transmission of results electronically through certain devices. And I'll get into that in just a second. But what happens is that every polling unit is essentially maxed out, meaning that there's almost 200,000, there's 190,000 polling units in Nigeria. And every polling unit has a maximum number of people who've been registered at that unit to vote, which means that, let's say in your hometown, your polling unit, there's 5 of them that are in close proximity, and it's been judged that all 5 of these have a maximum vote capacity of 87,000. So now if 120,000 votes are casted, somehow that means that there was a problem because that's above the maximum. But that technically shouldn't be happening with the new system because all the votes have to be accredited. And there's a strict process where before you vote in Nigeria, it's a very high-tech process now. You scan your fingerprint and then your face gets scanned as well. And then the numbers on the back of your card, you're given like a card, like a driver's license almost, which is your permanent voter card. It's what you use to vote. So all these people, according to INEC, the referee, the electoral body, all these people have been categorized, their biometrics have been taken, and we know the exact number of people that can vote. So when you show up, you're already in the system. You put your fingerprints down, and once your fingerprints are down and your face has been scanned into these machines that they have, and here we see a picture of a youth corps member. A lot of these elections are conducted by volunteer youth corps members who are graduates and are in a program set up by Yakubu Gowon for Unity of the Nation, where they spend a year serving their nation. I actually was batch C in Abuja. I spent a year doing this exact program. But with the new electronic voting, there is a certain number of people who can vote, and you're authenticated, which means that not anybody can just show up and vote. You have to go through certain processes in order to be able to say, hey, I'm going to cast my vote. So now this is the first time that this is actually being used for a presidential election. It's been used in several gubernatorial elections, I believe 2 or 3, but this is the first time it's actually going to be used in an actual presidential election. So with this particular governor election, people are actually scratching their heads and saying, wait a minute, if this BVAS system, BVAS, is so good and so thorough, how is it that almost 100,000 votes were recently thrown out in the Osun election at the Osogbo Governor Tribunal? They essentially said that Oyetola received about 304,000 votes, and Governor Adeleke, the current governor who's there now, only received, I believe, 275,000 votes.
Mm.
So he went from having 400,000 votes to now having 275,000 votes. It's 125, approximately 128,000 votes if you add the additional 3,000 that he was listed as having. And so the tribunal conceded that both sides had overvoting. And so they reduced both numbers, but they didn't reduce Oyetola's numbers as much as they did Adeleke's numbers. So some people are now questioning, saying, wait a minute, certain INEC officials had promised us, and when I say us, it's a royal us, it means the masses. Some people had promised us that this system was foolproof and we weren't going to be dealing with some of the issues that we dealt with in some of the elections previous. And you have to remember, some of the elections previous, there was no such thing as electronic voting or authentication of voters. So allegedly, people would send buses into Niger Republic and Cameroon and give people, some money to come in to load up buses and bring people in town to vote, whether they were underage or not. So there was this big deal that people were saying, hey, look, there's a line full of kids and they're voting, how is this possible? Who's authenticating all of this? So the government came out with this new system where you pre-register with your biometrics, your fingerprint, and a facial scan, a scan of your face and your fingerprint and your voter's card, which in theory they should be foolproof. And the caveat there is in theory as opposed to in practice. Because now we're asking questions, wait a minute, how could there be a situation of overvoting if there's electronic transmission and authentication? How did we get these extra votes? How did that happen? So now we're starting to ask and say, wait a minute, have people figured out a way to manipulate this system as well in the same manner that they manipulated the system when it was paper voting? Up until this current election, where Nigeria decided to use technology in the electoral process, or at least in what some have deemed to be an adequate amount of technology, there would be ballot paper, long ballot rolls. And if you ever have voted in an election, last election I voted in was for Good Luck Jonathan in 2000, maybe, was it 11 maybe? It eludes me at this point, but it's been quite some time. I've been in the United States and I haven't voted in Nigeria for quite some time. So you get a long piece of paper and you would get ink on your fingerprint and they would put something on the back of your nail, meaning that this person has already voted. It was very rudimentary, but it would be something that you couldn't really get off of your, it'd be like almost like nail polish on the back of your thumb. And if anybody saw that, that meant you voted for the day. You couldn't vote again because what you vote with was your fingerprint. You would take ink and you would literally stamp your thumbprint next to the icon of the party that you wanted to vote for. And they would take those and they'd put those in boxes. And then they'd take these boxes and put them in vans. And then they'd drive these boxes to coalition counting centers. And then they would take all of these individual pieces of paper out and they would count all of them up. And then they would come to a conclusion and say, okay, they'd write down the number and then they would send that somewhere else. And then they'd write down those numbers and do the math and then they'd announce the results. And there's just this system, it's too easy to manipulate. So for example, you can simply just write in whatever number you want. You can thumbprint ballots prior to even the election and you just mix those in. You can have people in areas where you're not strong merely just throw those votes out. You can say, hey, look, when you get these votes from the places I'm not popular, throw them in the gutter, and I got a new box that you're going to collect, and I got 70% of the area where I would have only gotten 10%. Or let's say I just figure out a way to give the INEC overseer in that particular state, I give him a piece of land in Banana Island, and then someone calls him up and says, hey, I'd like to buy this land. You know, it's a couple $100,000, maybe $1 million. And you agree, and all of a sudden you, through the back door, just got $1 million, and then you get another phone call saying this election needs to come out correct because we believe in fairness and justice. And justice means Ebube Okoli wins the senatorial seat.
Right.
You see, so with the non-electronic transmission of results and the lack of voter authentication, it created a situation where you're going to have problems because there's too many systematic loopholes. And those systematic loopholes were left there, what many allege were left there for the particular purposes of rigging elections. So with the new system and all the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars spent to procure all this technology to ensure that this vote is going to be free and fair, we're already seeing that there's overvoting, which logically just doesn't make sense. It means something is wrong somewhere. Either the courts are coming up with these numbers arbitrarily, or INEC is coming up with these numbers arbitrarily, because there's no way for, if the system is followed properly, there's no way for overvoting. So how did we get these other results? And that's what the big question mark is. So now currently with Governor Adeleke, he's still there because this is an issue that could go to the Supreme Court. It's one of the issues that the Supreme Court has jurisdiction over. So, and of course, they're going to go there. They're not going to just surrender, if you will, because they have the money to hire hundreds of lawyers and spend thousands of man hours on this. So this is a situation where you're going to see him exercise that option. Moreover, this can go to the Court of Appeals. The tribunal ruled in favor of the opposition. However, the governor, the current sitting governor, can always appeal to the appellate court. And if he doesn't like the result of the appellate court, he can always appeal to the Supreme Court. And that's typically where most governors should, because let's say you lose the appeal. They're not going to sit with that. They're going to say, hey, I won the last case. I'm going to go to the Supreme Court. So regardless of what happens next, this is going to the Supreme Court, unless Governor Adeleke just says, you know what, you're right, I didn't win it, you know, I concede. And that doesn't happen in Nigerian politics because there's just, it's almost like a do or die affair. There's just too much at stake. So, hey, Dynasty, did you still have that question?
No, I already asked it in regards to what is the overvoting.
Yeah, overvoting just means that there was a certain number of people who were accredited to vote, and somehow there was a number higher than, and remember, there's a limit. There's certain people that registered, and they registered at a certain polling unit, and that's your polling unit. You can't go anywhere else. That's your polling unit. So you have to get authenticated that you actually registered to be at that polling unit. You have your PVC. There's numbers on your PVC, and then you also have your face scanned. So to be able to
state Adeleke is from? Is he from Osun State?
Adeleke, I believe so. I believe he has ties to Enugu as well.
Enugu. Okay, yeah, Enugu. That's where he's from.
Yeah, but I think his patrilineal line is from Osun State, because the way it works in Nigeria, everywhere except Lagos and sometimes Kano and definitely Abuja, you don't really have indigents who become governors there. I don't think Lagos has had an indigent become governor for quite some time. Tinubu, I don't believe he was an indigent of Lagos. Neither was Fashola. I don't know if maybe Ambode, maybe Sanwo-Olu, but Lagos is one of those places where sometimes people who might be from Osun, Ogun, Ekiti State can become commissioners and governors and things like that. Same with the FCT, although it's not called a governor, it's called a minister. Look at El Rufai, someone from Kaduna, becomes essentially the governor of the FCT, even though it's not called the governor, it's called the FCT minister. There's no election. It's an appointed position, but it's very similar to the governor. And while he was there, that's when I was living in Abuja. My family was there. And he did a very good job from what I remember. It was controversial. Some people said he was overzealous in his duty in regards to knocking down land and knocking down buildings to ensure the master plan was there. So Abuja is one of those places where sometimes, in fact, most times the governor isn't from there. And also Kano is one of those places too, where maybe you can come from Jigawa or one of these kind of places and become the governor. Everywhere else in Nigeria, like, for example, in the East, one of the places I like to personally be and where I'll probably spend the most time if I'm in the East is Enugu. I really like that city, but I'm not from Enugu. If I ever wanted to be governor, I'd have to go to Anambra, where I'm actually from, where my DNA and my history and my roots go back to. Like, my home in Nigeria is Abuja because that's where I spent most of my time whenever I lived back in Nigeria. But I'm not from Abuja. I'm from the East. So any electoral position, I would return to the East to pursue. Appointed positions are different. You can be a minister, however, you would still be representing your state. In Nigeria, there's something called state of origin. And state of origin is essentially, it means that if you want to contest anything, you need to go to wherever your state of origin is. It's not where you're from. It's not where you're at, it's where you're from, right? So outside of certain positions. So Adeleke is, for him to run for governor in Osun State, his father, at the minimum, has to be from Osun State. Because in Nigeria, the way we judge where you're from is where your father is from. If your father is from Anambra and your mother is from Akwa Ibom,
Right.
You're from Anambra, but your mother's from Akwa Ibom, but where you're from is Anambra, even though women control the culture of the house. So if your mother is speaking Akwa Ibom language to you as a kid, you might grow up and that's your language in the house. But when you tell people where you're from, you would say you're from Anambra, even though you might feel closer to somewhere else. That's not how it's really. Your state of origin is determined by the state of origin of your father. Excuse me. So, yeah, he has to have ties to Osun State. That's just how it works in Nigeria when it comes to state of origin. So now you have these that have been distributed. There's over 190,000 polling units in the country. And so now you have a situation where a lot of people have been depending on this technology. A lot of people have been saying, wait a minute, this technology is what's going to save this election. The PVC is the weapon. The BVAS system is infallible. In order to vote, you have to be authenticated. And then as you vote, there can be live transmission of results, meaning that as you vote, it's like America. You can see which states are turning red or blue in real time. You just got to watch long enough, and you'll be able to see. Oh, Florida's going this way, and it's almost like a sports event, where if you spend enough time watching it, things will change, and if you spend enough time, there might be some dynamic changes, and if you spend enough time, there might be some surprises. So that's essentially the system that Nigeria is set up in theory. But you have to remember, Nigerians are very smart people, some of the smartest people on the planet. And so when certain elements within the country want things that they necessarily haven't obtained the proper way, they use that intelligence that they have in an improper way to do other things. But the system that's currently been distributed, a lot of people have faith in it. Now, this brings up a greater issue. We take a look here at the Nigerian map showing manipulation, potential risks of manipulation. So now this is medium, which means that it's not great, it's not low, but it's medium. So now you have election litigation in Borno, Yobe, Kebbi, Delta, Benue State, which means that even if somebody wins, the legislation, the legislative body of that particular state might be allegedly, and this is all alleged, this is outside organizations that look into Nigeria. And you have to remember that the reason this is the most important election is because Nigeria is one of those places where it's like a hidden secret. About 20 years, Nigeria is going to be the third or fourth largest country on the planet. It's going to be the epicenter of African power. It's going to be the epicenter of people who look like me and you in regards to power. It's going to be located there. It's going to be the strongest black nation on the planet if Nigeria gets its stuff together. Now, getting its stuff together, quote unquote, is largely determined by the leadership. Currently, some allege that Nigeria's leadership isn't really people who want to be in power to lead, but merely criminal enterprises that want to get into Nigeria to be able to siphon the riches off for themselves, as opposed to reinvesting those riches back into the nation to make Nigeria one of the most competitive nations on the face of the earth. So people allege that the quote unquote leaders aren't leaders. It's more so like organized crime that takes power in order to enrich themselves. So these elections really matter, because if Nigeria can get proper figures in there who merely care about moving the nation forward, then Nigeria will move forward within a few years, because most of Nigeria's problems are self-inflicted. It's, when I say self-inflicted, I mean it's inflicted by the fact that, unfortunately, Nigerians haven't figured out how to get the right guys in leadership.
Right.
Somehow there's a disconnect between the desire for change in a stronger country and the people who are elected. Maybe the people who are elected underestimate the type of job that they're going to have to do. But when they get there, prior to them getting there, they sing a certain tune about how they're going to fix this and fix that. However, once they get there, they start to have problems, and a lot of the campaign promises that they put forth don't get fulfilled. Now, when we look at the manipulation risks, we were told that the BVAS, the BVAS system, would take care of this. So a lot of people had faith in that, but now you look at the Osun, the Osogbo Tribunal, and we start to have questions as to, okay, is this system really as thorough as we thought? And like my older brother says, my older brother Uche, he always says, how you do one thing is how you do them all, right? So the smallest things he'll be very meticulous over, because at the end of the day, how you do one thing is how you do them all. If you're very meticulous with the small things, you'll be likewise the same way with the big, more important things. So now the smaller election in Osun might be a harbinger of the potential problems that we're going to see later. So in analyzing those potential problems, we see that there's voter suppression, potential voter suppression, like physically chasing people away in Zamfara, Kebbi, Yobe, Borno, Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, Cross River, Benue, Nasarawa, and Ogun State. And this is a medium risk. This means it may happen, it may not. It's at a 50-50 level. Now, when we take a closer look at the places where there is a little bit of a higher risk, we see that there's voter suppression almost everywhere except Abuja, Ebonyi, Plateau, Gombe, and Sokoto. Everywhere else is facing.
1 second, guys. Do me a favor. Hit the like button again. Please hit that like button as you enter the chat room, and we'll take some callers here when Ebube gets done. We'll take a couple callers. All right, go ahead, Ebube.
Also, to make sure you guys are hitting that like button. You know, that's your ticket for admission. Dynasty Mir, he does a wonderful job of providing content that, if you're here, you know, consuming it, you're enjoying it. So make sure that you get your ticket by hitting that like button if you like what you're hearing. If you don't like what you're hearing, hit the dislike button. But there should be no need. There should be no need. All right, and so here's the map showing high election manipulation risks. Now, this is where you see all 6 factors. The INEC capture, meaning that they intentionally didn't capture certain demographics where certain, maybe they took the PVC cards and threw them in the gutter. They threw them somewhere, but they're not where they're supposed to be. tampering with the voter register, meaning trying to disqualify people based on their ethnic group because maybe they feel this particular ethnic group won't vote properly. Voter suppression. We see voter suppression is strong in parts, well, throughout the North, essentially, and parts of the East. Resistance to BVAS, the BVAS system. And then we see that number 5 is a history of election manipulation. And then number 6, some people, they know how to use the court system in order to get favorable judgments. So we see where there's high manipulation risks. So when people talk about elections in Nigeria and why there's problems, these problems are all done by people. INET capture, okay. The people who are supposed to capture the biometrics, maybe they go out of their way to make sure that certain groups are disenfranchised, right? And then tampering with the voter registry. Once again, that's tampering. That involves human involvement. Voter suppression. That involves human involvement. Resistance to the new system. Now that involves the voters saying, I don't know if this system is what I want to engage in. I'm going to stay away from the election. History of election manipulation and election litigation. Now you see that all of these are human-made. All of these are man-made. They're not issues that are just because. It's not like an earthquake or a tsunami. No, all of these are caused by human involvement, aka corruption. And all corruption is a system. And all a system is are people who act through thought, speech, or action towards a shared goal to either harm their enemies or benefit themselves. So now the question becomes, with the Osun election and the Osogbo Tribunal, if we can't trust the system that was put in place by the government to ensure that there can't be systematic corruption, because we're looking at the map and we see that we have all these potential problems, well, then you have people like Pito B saying, hey, look, the PVC is your weapon. The system works. And he seems to be gaining a lot of steam and a lot of traction. And there are a lot of people who are fed up with the current status quo. And they're saying, listen, Nigeria is a bird that's supposed to be flying. It's not flying. And because it's not flying, it's harming people like the youth. It's harming people who are just seeking jobs. It's harming the common man. It's harming everybody but the elite.
And Ebube, quick question. Sorry to interrupt. Is there going to be a debate at all?
Well, here's what happened. That's an interesting question. Here's what happened. You have you have four candidates, really. There are more, but you have 4 candidates who are expected to score over 15%, right? That would be Kwankwaso, who is a former governor of Kano State, very good technocrat, very sound man. I believe he's a PhD holder. He was a very good governor. In fact, one of the most dynamic governors of Kano State. He's very loved in the North. You have Atiku Abubakar. He was a former vice president to Olusegun Obasanjo, and he has been in civil service a long time. He's been in government. I believe he ran against Abiola for president as well. So he's been in the game a very long time, before most people were born in Nigeria, in fact. Most people in Nigeria were born after 1997. The majority of Nigerians today were born after 1997, which is kind of crazy to think. But more Nigerians were born after 97 than there were born before. So when I say Abiola, to some people, that's ancient history, which kind of dates me a little.
Abiola was he was elected as president, but was assassinated, correct?
Basically, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories
along with his wife.
Everybody involved with that entire transaction, but there's a lot of stories as to what really happened. We may never really know the truth, but
there's actually a good documentary on his life. I have a digital copy of it in my email, but if I actually didn't delete it, it was actually his daughter was the one that pretty much put the documentary together. It's a pretty good. It's a good documentary, guys. I gotta find while Ebube's talking, I'll find the name of it. But it's a pretty good documentary. It's just I don't know if it's available for the public. Like I saw the I saw the trailer and I reached out to the director and they sent me a copy of it in my email. I just gotta go ahead. I'll find the name of it. Go ahead, Ebube.
Cool, but just for those who don't know, Moshood Abiola, aka MKO, MKO, as the people are calling him, but MKO Abiola was a very popular businessman, politician, and philanthropist. He allegedly won an election that was allegedly annulled by IBB, Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. Some people say he won, some people say he didn't win. The general consensus is that he did in fact win and that he was cheated. And that cheating has had very bad effects on Nigerian democracy, because after him, there was almost 10 years of military rule that we could have evaded by merely having 10 years of democratic rule. So instead of starting democracy in 1999, 2000 with Obasanjo, we could have had democracy, kind of the institutions being strengthened, a lot earlier in the early 90s. But yeah, so now we see the map where there are the potential risks, and then we scroll down a little bit and we come into another issue.
Guys, the name of the documentary is called The Supreme Price. The Supreme Price. It's real good. I'll put it in the chat room. Go ahead.
That's a very good title. Now, there are almost, I believe, 1.2 trillion. All right, here's another issue that we have in this election, is that there are allegations by the central bank governor, and many people also believe that this is true. They believe that there are elite Nigerians. And you have to understand that some Nigerians, the face that they try to paint of Africa as everybody's poor and has flies stuck to their face and is just scratching their booty. Those aren't necessarily true. You go to some parts of Nigeria, especially the parts you might catch me in.
Okoli.
No, any place, Abuja, anywhere in Abuja. Yeah, well, the places, hey, Adonis, you go to the far out countryside, like you go to places I don't even go. But
but you might catch me on an island. I'm on an island here and there. I'm on the island. You catch me.
You like the exotic. You like to be out. You like to be all the way out there at the at the historical sites. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
and then I'll come to the island.
I get but for me, I'd rather just be on the beach in Lekki. You know what I mean? Like, I'll catch you later. But yeah, so some Nigerians allegedly have packed millions, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars away. And some Nigerians allegedly buy houses in Ikoyi, Maitama, Sokoro, merely as places to put their money. So they'll buy a 10-bedroom mansion for $2 million and put 10 to 20 to $50 million worth of cash inside that house, lock the house, put a security guard there, and basically that's what will happen. So there are a lot of people in Nigeria who have massive amounts of cash, massive amounts of capital. And the allegation is that some of these people were planning to use it to buy votes, because with the new system, it's a lot more difficult to rig, allegedly. However, with this new court case, we're seeing, wait a minute, if it's so difficult to rig, how did we get an additional 125,000 votes? Something must be off. Either the court is lying or INEC doesn't have a foolproof system. But for them to invalidate 120,000 votes means there's a problem. However, turning to the problem of people potentially buying votes, if you can't rig, the next best thing is to give people 5,000, 10,000 naira and say, listen, vote PDP, vote APC, vote this, vote that. And if you do so, here's 10,000 naira. So you might run into a situation where you have people literally standing at a polling station, because the people who might be in on it, they themselves might have been bribed. And these people might stand over your shoulder and say, you know what? Atiku's a very good candidate, and he'll show you direct appreciation if you vote for him. Vote for a better Nigeria. And they'll have some cash in their hand. And they're standing over your shoulder. and now they're waiting for you to vote. And if you vote the right way, quote unquote right way, they'll give you that money. So allegedly, according to the CBN and Buhari, there are elites that have stashed away billions of dollars worth of naira that are ready to unleash this money onto the economy and voters in order to get their way. So this is an actual picture of somebody's house. Hey, Don, you see all this currency, right?
Right.
This is an actual picture of what was found. So there was an apartment in Lagos. Somehow there was a tip-off that it was being used as a stash house. And when I say stash house in Nigeria, I'm not talking about illicit contraband. I'm talking about it's a house where people keep millions of dollars. And I think $10 to $15 million worth of currency was found in this house. It was in, I think, Ikoyi or Victoria Island. So now in order to stop that, what's come up is that the central bank governor, who's been empowered through Muhammadu Buhari, the current president of Nigeria, who's a member of the APC, the ruling party, what they have come up with is, and this is something I believe Buhari did in the 80s. He changed the currency because he stated that people were hoarding currency. Mm-hmm. So this is like a throwback, and Buhari's basically come and did everything he did in the 80s, minus what he accomplished through Idiakbo and his de facto VP. So what happened is that they've gotten together and they said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to change the currency right before the election. We're going to make all of that currency worthless. We're going to now say, listen, any money that you have, you can go to a Nigerian bank and you can exchange that money. However, if it's above a certain amount of money, you're going to have to explain how you got this money, what business gave you this money, and you have to show that you've paid taxes on this money. Now, if you've stolen that money, that's going to be a huge impediment because you stole that money merely to distribute it during an election, which means you didn't earn it, which means there are no spreadsheets of how that money came in. And of course, you didn't pay taxes on it because it's money that you merely siphoned out of the system. So what they've done is they said that, well, the original deadline was tomorrow. They said by tomorrow, they gave 90 days, I think on October, November, whatever. They gave 90 days, and they said at the end of January, the old money will be paper, meaning that you can't use it anymore. So what they did is they went ahead and came up with this. They said, all right, here are the old Naira notes. Here are the new Naira notes, and we're going to swap these out. So what we're going to do is the old Naira note with Amadu Bello on it, the 200 Naira note, it's going to have a purple, pink, magenta type of tint to it. The $500 note with Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first president of Nigeria, and he's also from my state, Anambra, of course, where the strongest men come from. It now has a green tint to it. And then the 1,000 Naira note with the two central bankers, Clement Isong and I believe Maidris Bornenu, the two central bankers, it's going to have a blue tint. So if any of your money is the old Naira, it's not going to be accepted. So a lot of people, mostly the elites, got upset with this. And allegedly, it's because they planned on buying votes with all of the money that they stockpiled. And because they stockpiled this money illegally, it's very difficult for them to now show up to a bank and justify why they have $5 million.
Right.
Their annual salary is $12,000 a year. So a lot of people have had problems with this. So what they did is they extended the deadline from tomorrow, the 31st, 10 days into the future. So February 10th, that will be the day that the old Naira will officially become paper.
Ebube, whatever happened to the digital Naira? Because I know I downloaded this app, but I just never used it.
Well, I'd say about 30% of the and it depends on where you are in the country. 30% of the transactions in the country, world, nationwide, are done digitally, POS, meaning that it's almost like a Cash App system. Right. I'll use Cash App because that's colloquially what most people understand in this country. But most Nigerian transactions in certain places in the south, especially Lagos, Port Harcourt, Onitsha, Enugu, Ibadan, even Abuja, a lot of transactions are done digitally. Right. Because rather than running around, if you're a big boy, and you have to understand, in Nigeria, you have the elite, right? And if you're elite, in the old days, you'd run around literally with a duffel bag full of money, because in Nigeria, money fixes all problems. So if you're a big boy, a big man, anyone way you want to call him, if you're a big boy, you don't go out without money. That's the last thing you leave your house with. Right. And rather than running around with millions, the equivalent of almost $100,000 worth of money, what you would do is you'd merely just use your phone and transfer people money directly from your account. So you don't have to have physical currency. In certain places, most of the transactions are done electronically. So that is the thing. And so if you want to engage in digital transactions, you definitely can. It's very big. Places like Lagos, for sure. Port Harcourt, for sure. Igocha, as we should call it.
No, but Ebube, what I mean is, they had these, like, Nigeria has its own CBD, central bank digital dollar. CB.
Oh, the digital currency.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Like, no, I haven't heard anybody like using it. Like, I download the app, but I don't know anybody that's using it. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna do transfer like with my UBA account to, someone's Zenith or UBA account, but they have the the central bank digital dollar. They have
digital dollar. Yeah. What happened with that is that, hold on one second.
Mm-hmm. Guys, do me a favor, hit the like button again, please. Hit that. The e-Naira. That's it, the e-Naira.
Yeah, what happened with that is that they were doing that to counteract all of the cryptocurrency that was going about. So they basically said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put out the central bank dollar in order to counteract the cryptocurrency. Crypto's been going through a lot of problems recently. The real issue is that a lot of Nigerians, rather than using the Naira to store their savings, they were just using Bitcoin because they knew, at least this is, oddly enough, Bitcoin was more stable than the Naira, which says a lot. But so Bitcoin was more stable than the Naira in the eyes of a lot of youth, and the government saw this trend and said, wait a minute, we have to have our own cryptocurrency, quote unquote, if you will. So we have to push this and promulgate this. Right now, with a lot of the cryptocurrencies having issues or being down, they may come back up soon or later, but either way, with that happening, it slowed down the introduction and the interest in the digital Naira. And people just merely said, you know what, I'm going to stick to the more stable notes and merely use electronic transfers of the notes between banks.
Right.
And so that's kind of the direction that people went in.
Okay.
So now we have a situation where you have Muhammadu Buhari, which is interesting. He's basically saying his legacy is going to be that he did not interfere with the elections, which is odd because some people are looking at it saying, wait a minute, you're an APC. You're not just the president of Nigeria. You're also the party, quote unquote, chairman, if you will. You're the highest ranking member in this party. But he's saying that, you know what, a lot of the money bags, because Buhari doesn't necessarily feel he has a loyalty to any of the corrupt politicians, quote unquote, that put him in office. And he's looking at it and saying, look, at the end of the day, you shouldn't be able to buy votes anyway. If Nigerians want you to be there, you should be there. Maybe he's looking at his own example. He believes that the people that wanted him there would have voted him to be there with or without money. Because for Buhari, he had people that would wait under the sun to vote for him. He had he was a cult-like figure in certain parts of the North. He was their guy. And so he might look at it and say, listen, if you really have that much support, what you need to do is you need to go ahead and do what I did. So now let's go ahead and scroll down to the actual election predictions. Now here we see that the presidential race is actually too close to call. However,
And Peter Obi, well,
but Peter B is actually winning.
yeah, because this says Peter Obi. No,
Yeah,
Peter Obi is winning. Okay.
Peter B is in the lead, but with a 4 to 11% lead, which is within the margin of error.
Oh, man, bro, dude.
I mean, this is what.
Do you think he has a? I mean, he's
Well,
the best. Do you think he has a chance? Really?
The thing is this. The thing is this. When foreign organizations come in and they do polls and they look at certain things and certain people answer a certain way, what they do is they take those answers and they compile it, because you have to remember that the international community is starving and waiting to invest in Nigeria. You know how many beachfront resorts you could have in Nigeria? You know how many safaris you could have in Nigeria? You know how many farms you could have in Nigeria? You know how many factories you could have in Nigeria?
Right.
Nigeria is the next China. However, bad policies and bad politics have kept Nigeria from becoming what it's supposed to be. You have people literally lined up saying, I wish I could invest in Nigeria because that's the winning ticket, but I can't trust the government. I can't trust that the environment is going to be conducive for foreign investment. So you have a lot of interest in Nigeria because at the end of the day, it's the largest economy on the continent, and that economy really should be times 3 or 4. So imagine you're the best player on the field and you're only giving it 25%. You're going to have coaches and scouts, everybody like, man, if we can just get this guy to overcome these mental blocks, he's going to be the next big thing. So that's what Nigeria is. Nigeria is essentially an athlete that's supposed to be a star but can't get out of their own way. So now, if we just look at the map, the green represents Peter Obi, the red represents Atiku Abubakar, the light blue, the Carolina blue, represents Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the purple represents Kwankwaso. So now, just looking at this map, it's interesting because it's trimodal, if you will. You see the light blue, you see Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who's a member of the ruling party. He essentially has the Southwest plus Kwara, Kaduna, Zamfara, and Borno State, which is surprisingly limited compared to the fact that he's in the ruling party. So he essentially has the ACN home field except Osun State, and then Kwara State, which is kind of an extension of the Southwest in a lot of ways. Even though it's north central, it could be considered Southwest depending on who you ask. And then he has Kaduna, Zamfara, and Borno, which is somewhat lacking. But then you realize the reason his northern support is lacking is because there's a northerner in the race, a popular northerner, a strong northerner, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who's in the red. And he's essentially taken most of the northern states, even down to Taraba, Nasarawa, and Kogi State. And Osun State is where he's predicted to win, which is odd, because now Osun State is contested because the governorship. However, the governor is just one man. Does the BVAS system actually work? If it does, then that's not an issue. So now Atiku has a good spread, but what really harms him, what stops him from winning? Because if this map...
So they have Atiku winning Osun State. That's interesting.
Well, Osun State was, and it's still debated because Adeleke is going to go to the Supreme Court. Even if he wins appeal, Oyetola is going to go to the Supreme Court. So somebody's going to go to the Supreme Court. Now, Adeleke is going to appeal this. He's already in the governor house. He has his feet up on the furniture. He's sleeping in the bed of the governor. He believes he's the governor. He's not just going to vacate. Nigerian politicians don't do that. He could, but I doubt he's going to do that. So what's going to happen is he's going to go to the Court of Appeal. He's going to exercise his judicial right as a Nigerian. Now, if the Court of Appeal says, you know what, you're actually the governor, the lower court made a mistake. The tribunal in Oshobo made a mistake. Go ahead. You're the governor. Don't worry about it. That's going to go to the Supreme Court, right? If he wins, the opposition is going to say, wait a minute, we won in stoppage time. You won in overtime. We're going to have an extra overtime at the Supreme Court. So no matter what happens, it's going to the Supreme Court. That procedurally, that's just what's going to happen. So now, Atiku Abubakar does have Osun State. Now, we also have to look at what he doesn't have. Not just what he has, but what he doesn't have. What he doesn't have is Kano, which is the largest, which is according to the Nigerian census, which is the largest state in Nigeria. Now, some people might say it's Lagos, but hey, the Census Bureau has already come up with the fact that Kano is the largest state in Nigeria. So we'll just go with what Nigerian census says. It's not Lagos, it's Kano. So Kano has the most votes. However, there's this cult-like figure called Kwankwaso with these red caps that everybody seems to be following. And it seems like he's just trying to make a statement saying that I will win this state, and if you're not careful, next election I'll win the whole North. Because if Atiku wasn't running, potentially Kwankwaso would have the entire North. Potentially. It would be between him and it would be between Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So now we look at Atiku Abubakar. He has a good spread, but what prevents him from winning under this current scenario is the fact that he doesn't have Kano. So now we take a step back from him. We've analyzed Tinubu. We've analyzed Atiku. We look at Mr. Former Governor Peter Obi. Peter Obi has the Southeast and the South-South. Now, typically the Southeast and the South-South for the last 20 years have voted in lockstep, which means that they're essentially a unit in the South. If you win the South-South, you've won the Southeast. If you win the Southeast, you've won the South-South. Now, the question is, okay, the Southeast and the South-South, very good number of votes, but what else outside of that? So now Peter Obi is appearing to be winning in Benue, which kind of makes sense because Benue is the most northern southern state. And Nigerians understand what I mean. Benue is the most northern southern state. Also in the FCT, as well as in Plateau, where you have Jos, and Plateau has a similar dynamic to Benue. In fact, I believe at one point, Benue and Plateau were one state. So Peter Obi currently, according to this foreign organization, has won, but his lead is only 4 to 11%, which really isn't enough to declare him the tentative winner. So now what we're going to do is we're going to analyze Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu and what he has. So in the dark blue, what we see are the places where he's expected to win outright, meaning that he's going to be number one. In the light blue states, that's where he will come in second, which is important. In order for this not to come to a runoff, the most important thing is where will you win second? Not first, but second. Because obviously you're going to win your home base. That's an obvious. But where else outside of your home base are you going to win? So Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he holds a comfortable lead in Ekiti, Ondo, Oyo, Ogun, Kwara, and Borno State. Surprisingly, he has only a marginal lead in Lagos, Lagos is the second most important state, according to the census, to Kano, because Lagos has a substantial number of votes. However, him, Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and former Governor Peter Obi are neck and neck in Lagos, which is surprising, but not surprising, because Lagos is very cosmopolitan and it's a hodgepodge. So now we're going to look at where Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu was strong. We see that Yoruba-speaking Muslims, men and women in the Southwest and North Central favored Tinubu by almost 80%. So he has a strong base there. He also has almost 80% among civil servants who are registered with APC, which means that the civil servants are the deep state. When people talk about the deep state is essentially the civil servants, meaning the people that they're going to be there when the political appointees come and when the political appointees go, the permanent secretaries, if you will, the people who will be there, right? So he also leads among that group. Now, the problem for him is that the presence of APC governors isn't translating over into votes. So just because the governors show up at your rallies doesn't mean that the people of Bauchi, the people of Kano, the people of Kebbi, Sokoto, Jigawa, Yobe, Gombe, Plateau, Katsina, Niger, those places, just because the governor's shown up doesn't mean that those people are giving you their votes. A lot of those people are leaning towards Atiku. So part of the problem is that the northern candidates, essentially, if you will, are blocking the votes of Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, Bola Ahmed Tinubu does have a slight lead in Kano, Zamfara, and Borno. In Borno, the lead is attributed to his vice president, who's very popular there, Shetima. Honorable Shetima is very, very, very popular in Borno State, which is also the region of the Northeast, which is where Atiku comes from. So, unlike everyone else, Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu is actually winning where his vice president is. So we see that he has most of the Southwest, Osun. Now remember, Osun was predicted to go to PDP. However, with the recent ruling, we'll see how that goes. But currently under the foreign organizations, the way they're looking at it, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not in the lead. Now we look at all the blood red hot sauce right here. This is Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Now he has the majority among men and women who speak Hausa. And if you know anything about Hausa, Hausa is the #1 language in Nigeria, and I think the number 2 or 3 in Africa. Kiswahili is the only language, and I think Arabic, maybe if you combine all the different dialects. But Arabic is about 15 different languages. They call them dialects, but Arabic is very diverse. You take a speaker of Arabic from South Sudan or Sudan, and you put them in Syria or Lebanon, they might not understand each other. It's like English. Someone in Jamaica, their type of English, they might sound like Sean Paul, and then you put them in New Zealand, and they might not understand each other, even though they're both technically speaking English.
Well, guys, links in the chat. Are you ready to take calls, Ebube? Or can we start taking calls?
Let me go through one more, and then we'll go to calls.
Well, guys, links in the chat room. If you want to call in, click on the link, and then we'll start letting you guys on to add to the conversation. All right, go ahead, Ebube.
All right, so Alhaji Atiku Abubakar leads in Sokoto, Katsina, Jigawa, Yobe, Niger, Kebbi, Gombe, Bauchi, and no surprise, Adamawa. And so the biggest disadvantages for him at the moment is the fact that he hasn't won Kano. If Alhaji Atiku Abubakar doesn't win Kano, he doesn't win this election. So now you see how Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs to win more of the North, and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar needs to win Kano. Because currently he's not statistically in the lead unless he can take that from Kwankwaso, unless Kwankwaso somewhere along the line collapses his structure and agrees to be with Mr. Atiku Abubakar, which could always happen. We have about 30 days to go, but it might not happen. Lastly, in analyzing Mr. Pito B, which is the real surprise, because a lot of people said, hey, his support is just 4 people tweeting in a room. And here we take a look at it. Pito B actually is in the lead. He has block votes from the Southeast, block votes from the South-South. He has 3 states in the North Central, Benue, FCT, and Plateau. And then he is also in the #2 lead in Lagos, with potentials to potentially win that state, which sounded crazy 6 months ago. The Pito B phenomenon, what it really seems, I don't know if it's Pito B personally. I think it's the people saying, rather than picking between two bad decisions, we'll make up our own decision and force the elites to agree to it. So I think P2B more so represents the common man. But P2B leads in Edo, FCT, Plateau, Akwa Ibom, Benue, Cross River, River State, Enugu, Ebonyi, Abia, Imo, Anambra State, and he also has a slight advantage in Delta and Bayelsa. He's currently in second place in Lagos, Oyo, Kaduna, Adamawa, surprisingly, and Taraba states. And also, too, P2B is the only candidate to hold commanding leads in his own base, meaning that he has over 70% in the Southeast and South-South. And he's currently in lead among Nigerians between the ages of 18 to 35. He has almost 75% of that demographic, which means that the demographic of Nigerians who are going to make up the majority have decided on P2B. That's just where they've went. He also leads about 85% among Christians in the Middle Belt, and Kaduna and parts of the Southeast, Taraba and Adamawa. And he also, his weak points are that he doesn't really have any pull in the Northwest and the Northeast, and the Northwest has the highest voting base. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And
guys, if you want to call in and add to the conversation, links in the chat room. Again, if you want to call in and add to the conversation, links in the chat room, please call in and participate. Again, please call in and participate if you want to. I'm reading the comments in the chat room. Now, Ebube, I know you're not on the ground. We're not in the ground in Nigeria. Do you really think Peter Obi has a chance? I don't know where you got your sources from, your information from in regards to the outlook right now so far when it comes to the election. But do you really think Peter Obi has a chance?
Well, what I believe is this, is that you have a particular subset of Nigerians that are tired of the systematic options that they've been offered. You see that PDP, they had 16 years to prove themselves. 16 years to prove themselves. You have APC, who in the last 8 years, some people said APC has done worse than PDP. If you take a poll and say, is your life better today than it was 8 years ago, you may be shocked as to the results. So as much as people complained about PDP, there's a lot more complaints about APC. So there's a lot of Nigerians who are saying, you know what, it's not going to be APC that takes us to the promised land, and it's not going to be PDP. And you have a lot of Nigerians now who have social media who can see what constant electricity looks like, who can see what Dubai looks like, who can sit in Oshobo and see what London looks like, and see what a working society looks like, and see that, wait a minute, this is one of the richest countries in the world, but there's poverty, there's endemic poverty, there's multidimensional poverty. How can this be possible? It means that the people who are controlling this organization aren't necessarily doing the right things, and we're not going to pick from any of the established candidates. So what I look at it is, it's not P2B as a person. I don't think Nigerians are looking at P2B as a person saying, this is the person that we want per se. I think what they're doing is they're saying, we're going to protest the two major parties. And P2B is the only candidate who's actually saying, here's what I want to do, right? Here are the steps. Here's what needs to happen. From consumption to production, we need electricity. We need this. Here are the plans. Here's my manifesto. Don't vote for me because it's my turn to be president. Don't vote for me because it's this or that. Vote for these ideas that I'm promulgating. And so a lot of people are gravitating to that and saying, you know what, I'm going to reject both parties. And it's the same group. And you have to realize that among people between 18 and 35, and if you understand anything about Nigeria, is when you go to Nigeria, most people are, if they're not kids, they're between the ages of 18 and 35.
Mm-hmm.
Most people in Nigeria are very young. It's rare you see a man or woman with white hair and a cane come strolling into the situation. And when they do come, they get a lot of respect because they're rare. And we respect our elders because the culture is still strong. A strong culture, you respect your elders because they have the most to teach. They might not have the most to contribute because of their age and limitations, but they're the people you need to listen to the most because they were you 30 years ago. So you might think you know some things, but the elders are there, but they're a minority. Most Nigerians are between the ages of 18 to 35 who can vote. Another majority are those who can't vote. So there are a certain group of people who have, and you got to realize too, this is a different era. Most Nigerians were born after, like I remember when I was a kid, Bibi was the president. My family, we left shortly after Buhari became president the first time.
Ebube, you froze up on us. Oh man, Ebube, you froze up on us. Let me text him.
Hey, Dennis, it's like froze for a second.
You're back now. You did freeze. You froze for a second, but you're back now. We lost you at your family left when Buhari was president the first time.
Yeah, we left when Buhari came to power the first time, and so I grew up, and the first Nigerian president I ever knew about was Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. So I knew about Babangida as the first president, and so I was always into politics even when I was like 9 years old. I came to this country as a young boy. When I was a young kid, I used to just still be involved in Nigerian politics and listen to the older men discussing politics. And so I remember, military rule where a lot of things were very autocratic, if you will. A lot of these young people in Nigeria who were born in, look, imagine the people born in 2000. Their first president was Obasanjo. They know democracy. They don't understand that you can't wear green camouflage because Abacha said you couldn't do it.
No, you still can't do that. You still can't do that.
Yeah, but there was a time you get thrown in jail without question.
There's a time still now you get thrown in jail.
Now they might ask you questions. They might send you home. There was a time when the secret police might accuse you of fomenting a coup. What you're seeing now is a legacy, a holdover of what used to be there. What I'm trying to say is that there's a whole crop of Nigerians who grew up understanding democracy, social media, and the Kardashians. Mm-hmm. It's a different time now. So in regards to can Peter Obi win? Well, can he tap into the majority of Nigerians? And then the question is this, the BVAS system that we're seeing being challenged in court, how strong is that system? If it's being challenged in court and we're seeing all these overvoting, which is what the system was supposed to prevent. So the real question is, are we in the right direction? To Naija, Galfa.
Yeah, greetings, Linus and Ebube. Yeah, I'm good. Greetings to everyone and the chat and the viewers. Yeah, I heard about this thing. I saw the poll. This thing. Which organization organized that poll?
It's one of these foreign organizations that want to invest in Nigeria.
I see. There's a poll that was conducted by a Nigerian firm some months ago, and it was also showing Peter Obi in the lead. But on the ground, the problem is this election. Yes.
Is there any way to turn down the receiver on your microphone a little bit?
Yeah, it's like muffled tonight.
Muffled,
you have a very rich, deep voice, and if it's not turned down, it'll distort.
Okay, let's see. Let's see what I can do. That.
I'm gonna go grab some water.
Is it better now?
Let me hear you.
A bit better.
Yeah, it's better. You just have a very rich voice, so you have to have
okay, thank you. Yeah, because I don't know. Maybe I was too close. Yeah, on the ground, it's not very clear for us. Wow, I can see that it's really popping loud. Yeah, on this thing. Is my voice coming out across okay?
No, your voice is good, but you have like a good narration voice. But the thing is, your voice is rich, and when it's rich, there's a lot of tones in it. So you always want to turn down the receiver, as opposed to someone who's quiet.
The microphone.
You
Okay. So yeah, from what my observation is that I don't know if he's going to win outright. But from the polls that I've seen, he says he's going to win, and I know that in the south and southeast, it's likely to win. You said something about the south and southeast voting in lockstep. It's not necessarily true. They tend to vote differently. But Obi's.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. You have to remember, right? During Obasanjo, right? Well, we can go back to Abiola. During Abiola, the Southeast and South voted in lockstep. During Obasanjo 1, the first time he ran against, I believe, Olufale, the Southeast and South voted together. And the second time Obasanjo ran against Buhari in the cohort, the Southeast and South voted together. And then the next time during Yar'Adua, the Southeast and the South voted together. And then during Goodluck Jonathan's reign, the Southeast and the South voted together. Even with Atiku Abubakar, the Southeast and the South voted together. So for the last 26 years, the Southeast and the South voted together. So
I'm not so sure about that, actually.
When you said they deviated, which election in particular are you talking about?
I think, especially the one Atiku was in, the Southeast and the South voted differently. I think against Buhari, they voted differently. Let me just confirm that.
Which states? When you say different, which states? Because I'm going to pull up the whole map. So you got to have it correct. I'm going to pull up the map.
Yeah, please do, because that's the impression I got. Except I'm mistaken. It's possible
have you
I'm
looked
mistaken.
At the map, or are you just merely saying this is your opinion?
No, it's not on the map. It's from information I've seen before. No, it's from information I've seen before. I mean, just that when you have not seen it, when I'm saying this, I have to always be cautious. But I've seen information before showing that the Southeast generally votes the northern candidate, while the south and they tend to vote the southern candidate.
The thing is, let me go ahead and tell you, because I have the map pulled up here. But so what I'll tell you is this: is that all right? So last election, all right, the states that voted together, and I'll just read them out: Edo State, Delta State, Bayelsa State, River State, Akwa Ibom State, Cross River State, Imo State, Abia State, Anambra State, Enugu State, Ebonyi State, Benue State, Taraba, Plateau, Adamawa State, FCT, Oyo State. So if you're talking about last election, no. Yeah. And then I can go back one more election if you want. If I go back one more election, Edo State, Delta State, Bayelsa State, River State, Akwa Ibom State, Cross River State, Abia State, Imo State, Anambra State, Enugu State, Ebonyi State, Taraba State, Nasarawa State, Plateau State, FCT, Ekiti State, all voted the same. So like I said, if you look at South and Southeast, they typically vote the same. The thing is,
but what you're not noticing is that what you're not noticing is the size of the difference of votes.
Let me finish. When it comes to majority populations, the South and Southeast have voted together for the last 26 years. That's just a fact. But continue what you were saying. So what you were saying was incorrect. I just wanted to correct you before you said something that was incorrect, and got recorded, and you were stuck with that. But you got it.
No, you are not listening. You didn't listen fully. They are not voting exactly in lockstep, especially when it comes to 25% votes. The other candidates, the northern candidates, tend to get votes in the southeast that they will not get in the south, and the south, the other candidate gets some vote that they will get in the south they will not get in the southeast. The level of support, yes, maybe they vote generally in terms of who wins the election in the same way, but the level of votes they get, where they get their 25%, which is very significant in Nigeria, they tend to be from different sides. They look at it differently because the south don't necessarily align with the same candidate as the southeast, even if they generally vote the same way, but they'll give different sides the benefit of the doubt. Or I don't know, understand. You don't necessarily understand what I'm saying.
No problem. But the question is, so what do you have on topic for us in regards to the Adeleke, the BBAS system? What do you have on topic for us?
I think the Adeleke situation is not new in Nigeria. They do now and again pass judgments against elections, which I find really, I don't know whether it should be encouraging, because in the West, it's very rare you see they overturn any election like that. It's been happening in Nigeria quite often. Governorships, they are overturning them. based on, they find one document that is faulty and they will just overturn it. So it's not new. He might appeal. He's going to appeal, of course, and he might still remain in office based on the final judgment of the Supreme Court when he gets there. So it's not clear whether this victory is going to stand eventually. So
on what grounds do you believe? Now, here's the thing. Here's the issue, and I'm going to propose this question to you. Now, there's been a lot of talk that this BVAS system, the BVAS system, is infallible because of the authentication that has to happen before anybody votes and the fact that there's instant transmission to the server. So under those two parameters, it seems as if that's foolproof. Where do you think that there's a leakage in the system?
I think the leakage in the system may be due to whoever is running the process in terms of the registration process. Maybe it's not, the authentication is not happening as it's supposed to, or maybe if it flags that the person is not supposed to vote, then whoever is there may just has the power to allow the person to vote. Maybe that's the weakness in the system. However, the strength of the system is also shows from this election that it can be detected quite easily. That is the advantage, because if you vote, the vote is a little bit shady. You can easily filter it out based on who is accredited and who is not. And that is what happened with this election, except, of course, whatever result they are using is faulty, and that's why Adeleke is contesting it. So we don't necessarily know the final outcome, but it was very, very quick. The thing is almost the next day. INEC knew something was not right, but it wasn't up to them to call the election. So the other party had to take it to court, and the judgment was made. So the BVAS system is, I think it will need improvement, basically on that one, because it's not even supposed to let you vote at all if you are not accredited. That is the optimal system. It's like when you are signing on to any website. If somebody with that username or something has already signed on, you're not allowed to use it. You have to use a totally different username. But somehow this one was still allowed to, for people to overvote. People that are citizens to still vote again. So I think something is wrong there, and I'm sure the election officials will be able to look into that. My concern with that is that, like Adeleke, now let's say Adeleke cheated, somehow got into office, and he is in office for 6 months. 6 months is a long time for politicians. They can do a lot of things in that 6 months, and some politicians can just say, you know what, I'm going to take my risk. I will cheat. I will get into office for 6 months. And I'll get away with it. By the time we finish in court, I'm already done what I need to do, made all the money I need to make. You see what I mean? So that is a weakness, and I think that weakness needs to be closed. You can't allow people to just think that they can cheat, stay in office for 6 months, and the court overturns it and they go get out of office, because that could be enough time for them to do a lot of damage. So that's what I consider quite dangerous.
Let me ask you a question. You're a very smart individual. I don't agree with everything you say, but you have your opinions. The question is this: what are your particular election results, predictions? Who do you think will take it, and why?
If I'm going by my observations, I would say Peter Obi will take it, and because he's clearly the better candidate of all the three. And he is also a younger candidate than all the three. And I think 80% of Nigerians prefer younger candidates. He's working against the two other candidates. And Tinubu is not well. He's quite unwell. So that too is going to play against it. He's going to depress his votes. At least they are not going to be as hot. The enthusiasm for Tinubu is not going to be as strong because of it. Atiku, his party is divided. There are 5 governors, the G5 governors that are not necessarily in line with him. And if those governors, they are supposed to declare between today and tomorrow whom they are going to be supporting. If they decide to not support him wholeheartedly, that could be a big earthquake in Nigerian politics. And then Atiku's party will be bereft of 5 states, at least, that he was generally favored, or at least he would have gotten more votes.
Let me just interrupt you and ask about, I believe it was Shey Makinde. Didn't he already come out and declare support for Tinubu, or am I mistaken on that?
No. There is no clear support. It's the only person that has indicated that he supports Obi. I think this is Governor
Benway,
Osun.
right?
Benway, yeah, Governor Osun, yeah. He's the one that seems to be very keen on. But I don't think he's made it official because he's not allowed to, because it belongs to a party. That could be.
The thing is, with Benway, they've experienced, when about 2 years ago, when the Fulani herdsmen clash was going on, they were really at the receiving end.
Yeah,
and a lot of them, they
have a lot of their citizens in IDP camps, and there's people from that state in IDP camps, and they don't like it, and they've been having a lot of issues with the central government. But that is not the reason why they have issues with Atiku right now. Atiku is not acting like a statesman trying to bring the party together. It doesn't seem like it. Because if there's a dispute between your party and your party members are demanding some changes because they feel like the party structure is occupied by generally senior positions are occupied by northerners, and they ask to change, one would think you make some gestures to show good faith. But he refused to budge. Just to have one person resign, he refused to budge. He didn't even bother to say, you know what, just to make a good gesture, let me sack man's gate man, or just remove one personal assistant from that guy just to show that, I'm trying to. No, he didn't do anything. He just had meetings with them, trying to strike deal with them. That's where we are. So I worry that he doesn't seem to think, he seems to forget that he's the one running for presidency, not the 5 governors. They're running for presidency. And so from that point of view, he's not prioritizing his win. Would you have one official be the reason why you don't win an election? But somehow Atiku is doing that right now. And his approach to things, I don't understand it. The guy sometimes comes across as naive. Some of the things he does.
Why do you say that?
Because this is a guy that said he's going to make his friends rich. Then later on he says that Nigerians should deserve a northern leader. And then again he said he's going to privatize Nigeria and privatize it and give it to the Arabs. He said all kinds of stuff that and recently it just came out that he was very corrupt, that they created a shell company to be siphoning money from the Nigerian state. And they were at the newscasters were asking, this information just came out that your party is corrupt. They said, no, but their party is more corrupt. Can you imagine that? They are corrupt, but the other guys are more corrupt than them. That's the APC party, current party, office is more corrupt than them. So he get the feeling that this guy is so naive. No. When I look at this article sometimes, I just wonder, was this guy present running in an election when Abiola was alive? This is a politician, and he just seems like he doesn't understand the repercussions of those. I think the reason why he feels comfortable saying that and getting away with it is because in the North, it just dawned on me recently that, from what I gather, that in the North they don't see corruption as a no, as long as it's for the greater good of Muslims. You know how Americans voted for Trump? Those Bible people voted for Trump, even if they know he's not necessarily a Christian. No, that's how they tend to. That's what somebody said. They tend to be like that.
But wait, isn't that every group? Because accordingly, every group in Nigeria will defend their thieves, right? Let's say that someone from your father's state gets arrested. You'll see people from that state, even though they know he's a thief, they can know he's the biggest thief in the state. They'll still show up in court saying, "Leave our son alone."
Oh no, that is true. That is true. Pardon?
That's how they do that here in America.
Yeah, they do that. It's because there's the 2 layers now. One is tribe and the other one is religion. But the tribal one is already in place. Atiku has got the North locked down with the tribe vote. Then the religious aspect. There are certain things P2B will say now that yes, the tribal one will still be there, but the religious one is going to lose credibility. But in the case of the North, Atiku being corrupt doesn't necessarily even affect him on the religious ground. That is a difference that I didn't know about before, because some of these days, like, why would you say things like that? In politics, you don't just acknowledge that you are corrupt. You're going to make your friends rich. Who does that? Your friends rich with the state instrument. Who says something like that? You see what I mean? That's the kind of stuff Atiku can say, and I'll just look at him like shaking my head. What is wrong with this guy? So I don't see his party being strong because they are divided. I see the other guy, the other party, being the candidate being very, very weak because he's physically unhealthy, even if he's very, very powerful in the Nigerian context. The current president is not supporting him wholeheartedly. The current president that is supposed to be rooting for his own party member to win is not.
In fact, not only is the president not supporting any party, the president came out and said, I don't support any party. Vote your conscience, essentially. Vote who you will. And it's odd for someone within this party to not say, hey, if you're, for example, in America, if you're a Republican or a Democrat and you come up to the podium, it's like Barack Obama saying, it doesn't matter if you vote Democrat or Republican, just vote the right person. It's like, wait a minute.
He even went further than that. Although recently he has appeared on stage with him and held his hand up, and before he held Tinubu hand up, he actually said he was leaving. He forgot that he was even supposed to endorse Tinubu. It's almost like Tinubu had to drag him, kicking and screaming. So he had to just raise his hand up for how many seconds and disappear. So
which states? And which states was that in?
I think that was one of the northern states. I forgot to know
where Buhari was at anyway.
And yeah, exactly. They know him already now in the north. And a few days before that, Buhari released a documentary showing his life from a young age. And one of the key information he gave out there was he survived an assassination in the north. And the person that gave him the vehicle that enabled him to survive assassination was Kwakwaso. That is not even his party's is not his party's candidate. He's not from his party at all. So basically, he was basically in a roundabout way endorsing Kwakwaso in the north, which is crazy. And he didn't say anything about his own party candidate at all in that documentary at all. So he's not happy with Tinubu as the flag bearer. It was clear, even when they were running from the primaries, he wanted Osibanjo. And, Tinubu is very powerful.
Actually, Buhari's appointed candidate was Ahmed Lawan. When Buhari told the governors, hey, look, a lot of you guys are reaching your second term. You've chosen your successors. If we're truly in this party, as APC, allow me to choose my successor. And he chose Ahmed Lawan.
Yeah, but at the end, he preferred Osibanjo.
No. When Buhari had the chance to endorse his candidate, Osibanjo was running. Osibanjo was still running at that time. He was the one who selected Ahmed Lawan. He said, "This is my candidate," and unveiled him and said, "This needs to be the party flag."
I never heard about Lawan being this in Buhari's candidate.
Take a look at some news clips. But
I never heard about.
Muhammadu Buhari endorsed Ahmed Lawan as the supposed next flag bearer for the APC presidential. However, the party said, "Wait a minute, we understand that this is your endorsement, but allegedly enough favors had been done where they said, well, we got this guy over here doing everybody favors. This guy's going to be the next presidential."
Nah, I don't think Buhari endorsed Lawan. Let me just put endorse. No way. That guy, man.
What I'm saying is, listen, before you say something incorrect, take your time, go look it up, and you'll see that I'm right. I'm not just saying these. But take your time. You'll see what
Buhari denies endorsing Senate president. That's the news I just saw. That he denies endorsing him. I'm telling you.
There's videos of it. There's videos of it. Take a look at the videos. You'll see. Look, we don't need to argue that point. It's like arguing is Biden a Democrat or not. But let's just move past that point. When you have time, look it up. You'll see that I'm correct.
I am in the whatever he said. See, you may have misread what he said. Whatever he said, he wasn't endorsing him.
Listen, take a look at the video.
There's no video I can see.
No problem. You're looking it up right now on your phone, but give it some real time. You'll see what I'm saying. But continue with what you were saying.
Okay. So, because Buhari wasn't, he's not fully endorsing this in Tinubu. I don't think Tinubu necessarily needs his full endorsement because Tinubu is quite powerful. He does have, links all over the country. He's been planning this for a long time. He's in a lot of money. So that is now the contest is between Tinubu's money and structure that he's got on the ground because of the party has history and all the rest of it. So is all that money versus obese these things supporters now that are not necessarily, they don't have a structure on the ground that you can say that okay, they've run a big election before. So that is a very tricky one to call on the ground. If you just take opinion poll, you generally find that PWB will come out on top, but is that going to translate to the votes? And one other aspect that is present in this election is that the electoral.
Tunaja, I'd like you to answer your own question if you could. You
Which
stated
question?
That's going to translate into votes. I would like to hear your answer on that. You have the floor for the next
Yeah,
minute.
that's what I wanted to explain.
And then after that, we'll close out. Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to explain. The young voters in this election has increased in number. That's the age voters, early 20s, late teens, early 20s. They've increased by more than almost 30% in this, but they make up about 30% of the vote now. And the question is whether they will be able to go and vote. Currently, there is no provision for them to leave university to actually go and vote. But they are trying to find a way to allow them to go home and vote. If they don't, that could seriously affect the outcome of this election. And if they do the same thing, and it favors Bobby, if the young voters are allowed to go home to go and vote. So that is my take on it.
Why do you think the young people are behind P2B?
The young people are behind P2B because generally younger people tend to support P2B, just general. If let's say normally it would be 20% in the north that supports P2B, this in the politician, but for someone like P2B, it would be 25%. He will get extra vote from the young, and that's how it works everywhere in the country. So if just like Obama, if young voters participate, he gets more vote. If they don't, he will lose a vote. So that's what makes this election very, very fluid. It could go anywhere really, because of the money in Nigerian politics is reducing. The power is reducing, but it's quite strong out there. And Tinubu, you can see the effect of the money that Tinubu had. Look at what they did to the campaign chairman of Peter Obi during an election period. They got him to be convicted in this thing, and the CBN chair head was basically running all over the place trying to escape them in the country when he devised some of all these policies.
Are you saying the governor of the CBN?
Yeah. Yes, Emefiele.
Well, what happened is actually what happened is that Buhari ordered him, and you got to remember that the currency change came from Buhari because Buhari did the same thing, I believe, in 1985. In 1985, what Buhari did is Buhari basically said, and it was either him or the Agbon, the two of them were two peas in a pod. So you don't know if it came from Buhari or if it came from the Agbon. What they did is they said too many people are hoarding currency. Now, if you ever listen to any Buhari speeches from then, I'm a nerd. I like that kind of stuff. It interests me. So I listened to those old speeches, and they talked about people hoarding currency. So what they changed the currency, and they said if you have proper currency, bring it back to us. But after a certain amount of currency, we're going to ask questions. Right? Remember that? I don't know how old you are. I might be a little older than you, but there was a time Buhari enacted that policy. So now what Buhari did is Buhari did the same thing, and Buhari closed the borders in 84, 85, 86. Buhari also closed the borders back then as well. He did the same thing when he came. Buhari essentially did everything that he did in the 80s. I'm surprised people are shocked by what he's doing because what he did is the same thing that he did in the 80s. So now the reason he changed the currency then, he came out and stated that the reason he's changing the currency is because the elites have packed so much money and they plan on using this money in illicit manners to potentially influence the election. So he wants to change the money before the election to make the money that was potentially the 1.2 trillion naira that's out of the system. You have to remember, a lot of naira is out of the system. I don't know if you probably grew up in Nigeria as well. You might have gone over to an uncle's house or an auntie's house, and you might have been playing and actually stumbled into a room where you weren't supposed to stumble into, and you saw a lot of money in that room. And you started to understand that there's a lot of people in this country that will have whole rooms full of currency. I'm talking millions of dollars.
I agree with the policy. I agree with the policy of clearing the currency.
Wait. So now what happened is that Buhari instructed Emefiele to, of course, he's from your home state. He's from the Niger Delta. He's your brother. He instructed Emefiele to change the currency. Of course, that made a lot of people mad who may have stockpiled funds to use as ammunition. And so if you remember, I think 2 weeks ago, he came back into the country. If you remember who was there, he was guarded by the presidential soldiers. Yep. So there was DSS and other people waiting to potentially arrest him. He showed up and he was like, look, I'm with 50 of the president's men. You're not going to touch me.
Why do you think they wanted to arrest him?
Well, because you have to understand that he's carrying out Buhari's orders. Those orders are very unpopular. To now change the currency when people have allegedly stockpiled currency in order to buy votes, and then you say, you know what, if you can't prove how you got this money, it's worthless, less than 30 days before the election, you know how many people you're going to make upset?
That's my point now. But who do you think is sending? Who controls the DSS to the point whereby they are almost contravening the president's orders?
And let me ask you a question. And when they showed up, you know who they submitted to. So yeah, they showed up to arrest him, but then they saw, wait a minute, this guy's protected by the president. The presidential guard is here with this person. And the presidential guard, they don't care if you're DSS. They don't care if you're police. They don't care if you're army. They're the presidential guard. You already know how Nigeria is. We grew up in the same.
I know that. The question is who is responsible for pulling the DSS, basically like the CIA or FBI, to go and do what they were doing to the CBN head. Who has the power to do that? That is a massive clash of powers. The president and people within the party.
You know what's crazy? Both of those people are in the same party, right? So you have the money bags and you have the institutional power going head to head within the same party. Isn't that an interesting thing that's occurring? Is that you have people within the same political party going head to head using different allegedly. And let's all say allegedly, because at the end of the day,
there's only one person capable of pulling that in Nigeria. That is Tinubu that's capable of pulling that off.
In order to not slander anybody, we'll say allegedly.
Oh yeah. To be fair,
regardless of how we feel, we'll say allegedly. You know,
true.
And so allegedly, you have two people using the institutions of power to clash, and they're in the same political party. A house divided against itself cannot stand.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've been going for a long time, and to Nigeria, you know, I have a lot of respect.
Yeah, we know we always do a part.
We will keep Dynast up all night, and he has a life to live. We have to let him go.
Yeah, there was something I wanted to add regarding the, you know, how I focus a lot on security. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because still, you know, I'm very concerned about security now, and the good thing is that all four political leading candidates have already signed up to increasing the level of party. But I noticed that Peter Obi wasn't repeating his promise of recruiting 1 million soldiers. So when he was online the other day, I had a chance to ask him, and he confirmed that he was going to do it. And he went on to say, without security, you can't fix anything else. Guess what? Recently, a lady asked Tinubu what he was going to do about security, whether he's going to sort out the security mess in the north. He said if he wanted to do something about that, they will kill him. And she was like, why would you want to run for office when you're worried that you're going to die? You see, the problem we face in Nigeria, this is a man that is already saying he's going to recruit 1 million soldiers, but he doesn't want to actually use them to sort out the security challenges in the country. This is something that we really need to think about, and this is one of the areas I think Peter Obi does better too, and Peter Obi also sees the greater diaspora. He was in Haiti in 2010 donated 200,000 and worked as an aid worker in Haiti when he wasn't close to running for president at all. So Peter Obi on so many levels is better.
On a side note, shout outs to Haiti. They really should be part of the African Union. The African Union is really tripping by not allowing them to come in. But tonight, go ahead and wrap it up.
And guess what? Guess what? Nigerian police was in Haiti when Peter Obi got there. He discovered that Nigerian police was there in an exchange program with Haiti. Nobody knew that. I was surprised to hear that. And this thing. So on that front, do you know that Peter Obi is basically the first diasporan to be that could be a Nigerian president? He actually lived in the UK for quite a while before he went. I'm not sure he's a UK citizen, but he was here for a long time. Yeah,
there was a suit that was filed stating that he was a dual citizen and he shouldn't be.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because he was here for a long time.
Based on the lawsuit. But anyway, let's
hey, Ebube, anything else you got to share in closing?
Yeah, let me go ahead and wrap up. Tunaja, thank you for everything. Thank you for your contribution. You're always a very necessary quadrant in these areas. Now, I will say, listen, if you haven't hit the like button and you're not showing appreciation of Brother Dynast for the platform that he created and he's providing for us, go ahead and hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to Up Close and Center, good material is dropping. I just dropped Africa, China, NATO. It's an amazing documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's very thought-provoking. So go ahead and go over to Up Close and Center. It's a channel here on YouTube. I'm the creative director. There's a very good team, and we put together very good content. We release content once in a while, the same way Dr. Dre releases music, but it's quality over quantity. So go ahead and check that out. And what we're going to do is this. Thank you for your time and your commitment to justice, and we will see you guys on the next time. Dynast, go ahead and carry us out of here.
Yes, sir. Hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family, Dynast Amir, Search for Uhuru. Peace.